Let's rewind like a VHS. Turn back the time, feel the beat in our chest. Make sure that we never forget. Let's rewind like a VHS. VHS, VHS. Let's rewind like a VHS. VHS, VHS. Let's rewind like a VHS. Let's concede that we wanna believe that the past was only a dream, just a place that we never could leave. Follow what's only to retrieve. VHS, VHS. Let's rewind like a VHS. VHS, VHS. Let's rewind like a VHS. Feel the beat in our chest. Make sure that we never forget. Let's rewind like a VHS. VHS, VHS. Let's rewind like a VHS. VHS, VHS. Let's rewind like a VHS. Let's concede that we wanna believe that the past was only a dream, just a place that we never could leave. Follow what's only to retrieve. VHS, VHS. Let's rewind like a VHS. VHS, VHS. Let's rewind like a VHS.
Big Indian chief. So special, so above the law. You think you can do just as you please. I told you you'd make a mistake and I'd be waiting.
Watch his feet, man. He can kill you with his feet.
He can do anything he wants with his feet. Really think those Green Beret karate tricks gonna help you against all these boys?
Well, it doesn't look to me like I really have any choice, now does it?
That's right, you don't.
You know what I think I'm gonna do then? Just for the hell of it.
Tell me.
I'm gonna take this right foot, and I'm gonna whop you on that side of your face. And you wanna know something? There's not a damn thing you're gonna be able to do about it.
Really?
Really?
Kill that Indian son of a bitch.
DJ Nubis here with you on the Metal Time Radio podcast with my good friend and co-host Kevin Lammer from D Entertainment Headquarters. This is the Cinematic Synergy, where he and I alternate between picks to every month to choose which film we're going to sit down and review and talk about. This time it was my pick of Billy Jack from 1971, directed by Tom Laughlin, who you just saw plays the character role of Billy Jack. Mainly the other important character in this is Dolores Taylor, his wife, who plays Jean Roberts, who is his girlfriend basically in the film as well. Plot is ex-Green Beret Hap keto expert saves wild horses from being slaughtered for dog food and helps protect a desert freedom school for runaway. So basically, it's really worded terribly there. He sticks up on a reservation for this freedom school that has a bunch of young kids and a runaway named Barbara, who we'll talk about in a little bit, who is now hiding out there. And of course, her dad is a deputy of the sheriff, and you have a lot of like social issues, racism, sexism, a lot of violent stuff in this film that's being addressed. Quickly, I bought this on DVD because I had seen this many years ago. Always liked it. But it's funny because the movie itself has a lot of things that are weird behind the scenes as it is with the movie itself. But when I picked up the DVD, I initially thought it was just Billy Jack. I thought it was just that, but it turns out I bought the entire collection. And there's 4 films in this, and 3 other ones I have not seen. I knew about the trial Billy Jack. I just never got around to seeing it. But basically, it starts off with the first movie is The Born Losers, which I'll probably get around to seeing at some point, and watching the trial as well as Billy Jack Goes to Washington. There's 4 movies altogether. We're watching the second one, which technically it can stand on its own. You would never know that there's other movies even in the series at this point, but it did a good job of kind of making it standalone piece. Now, some trivia stuff on the film before we get into the meat of the review itself. Laughlin had no martial arts training before going into the film. He was, I forget the name of the guy that taught him, Boo So Han, who also played like a stunt double in this film for some of his moves, but he's the one that trained him in Hapkido is what they call it. I've never actually heard of that till now. Now, also, apparently, a lot of people, like co-stars, didn't want him to wear the hat during the movie. Like, they thought it was kind of looking silly, but he kept it, and that sort of became like an iconic piece for the Billy Jack character. So I always found that kind of interesting there. Also, initially, when it was released in 71, it wasn't received very well. It was kind of a dud. Nope. And then he re-released it. Laughlin did in 73. And it became like a big hit. I think it did it cost like $800K to make. But
it cost $800,000 to make, and up to now, it's made $32.5 million. But a big chunk of that come from rentals. So obviously, its first like foray into the theaters didn't hit, didn't do what they wanted, and then Laughlin decided to re-release it years later, I guess through popularity and through word of mouth, and it did better the second time. And then I guess after a second release, people who never seen it in theaters decided to rent it out, and it's the rentals that kind of boosted its overall tally of the money that the film overall made.
Yeah, and apparently this was like one of the first credited roles for Howard Hessman. Now, for those that are old as I am, he was one of the main characters on WRKP Cincinnati. So seeing him in this film, I kind of forgot he was in. I was like, that was kind of funny because he's kind of funny in this film too. The other important thing that I thought was pretty interesting to talk about was there's a scene later on, which we'll talk about, where a Corvette is driven into a lake.
Yeah.
Now the studio had rented the vet just to return it later as long as it was in good condition and everything. But I don't think the people that leased it out to them thought they were going to put it into a lake. So they thought, well, we'll put it in a lake, we'll just clean it up and bring it back. But it wasn't quite the same after they pulled it back out, and so they probably had to make up the money to pay for that car. because it was a nice car, no doubt about it. So I found that pretty interesting that they took a risk and kind of allowed that to happen with that. But the other thing is, do you remember early in the film when they're rounding up the horses and some of the horses are like falling on the ledge there a little bit?
I actually was disturbed by that. I was going to bring that up and
there's
say,
no one really talks about that. I'm like, man, that's like animal cruelty there.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, the film starts off with quite a bang, like where you see like them hustling up the horses and taking them to like this enclosure where they're going to basically shoot them to death and then give them up to like this, this dog food company to like, maul up for dog food. But that opening sequence with the music, and as there is that one scene where they're getting quite close to the edge.
Yeah, and obviously they're like falling over and almost falling off the ledge.
So the horse rustlers are like getting them, and the horses, because of that close to the edge, and they're like closed off together, they're kicking each other, and there's like two. But what makes it stand out more, which I guess was the intention, is the one that literally basically you don't know if it did or didn't fall off the cliff, but it was pretty much there. Was that like greyish horse? Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, even though this is a film, I was like, how the hell did they get away with that back then?
Right. Well, back then they pushed a lot of limits for sure.
Because it makes me think, like, did the horse? I would love to know if the horses actually did go off that cliff. I don't know if there's anything being put on the internet about it, but as soon as I seen that, I was like, don't know.
Couple other points of interest. David Roya, who plays Bernard Posner, he plays a focal point in the film as like one of our villains. After the movie had started doing better the second time around, I guess he tried to sue Laughlin, claiming that I guess he was kind of screwed out of royalties or something. I don't know. I guess he felt like he made it sound like his role in the movie was very integral and important enough to try to get more money out of Laughlin. So he tried to sue him and lost in the court case regarding that. But I thought that was kind of funny. So he's not only a dick on film, but he's a dick outside of the film as well.
I kind of in some ways I do kind of see his point a little bit, especially when we talk about the scene with the lead actress in this, when what happens with her. I didn't see that coming, but obviously it was quite disturbing when you see that happen. So he was probably the lead dickhead, the lead villain in the story. He's just one of them sleazy characters, sleazy bad guys that you love to hate. And he's like the son of he's like the son of the other main bad guy. So obviously he follows in the bloodline of dickheads, basically.
Yeah. And then finally, there is a scene later in the film where Laughlin's character, Billy Jack, is performing a ritual with a rattlesnake. And apparently he was told that the rattlesnake's fangs were defanged. Like basically the snake was defanged. And so as it was biting, it only didn't have its fangs with it. So he said it still hurt, but the reason why is because once he was checked over by a doctor a couple days later, the doctor said, well, you realize once you've defanged them, they have backup fangs that come out. So he was still being bitten by a rattlesnake like 11 times. And like he said, yeah, if you would have waited any longer, you would not be here right now. So that's kind of an interesting point. Somebody didn't do their homework.
I'm going to say that's an interesting fact that a rattlesnake has backup fangs.
Yeah. Yeah, it just kind of fills in and takes over the other ones. And it's like, man.
I suppose they've got to if you think about it, because if like they go to bite a prey in the wild and a fang were to fall out, they would have to probably grow it back in. Mm-hmm. So it kind of does make sense.
Yeah. So let's start getting into this. Basically, I'll let you start because apparently the opening was your favorite because of Barbara.
You nearly died because of this one. What people need to know is when you told me about this film, this is what we're going to do, I decided, I got up, watched another film prior to this one, got settled to have me lunch. And as I'm just sticking there and I'm tucking into my lunch, Barbara says some choice words and I literally nearly choked on noodles. So as I know, how this thing starts, we get the rustle and bustle of the horse herders that are taking these horses to, I guess, a location near the native land, where the
I think they had to actually go into the reservation to get them.
the reservation.
Yeah.
Like the one near or just on the border of this reservation, and basically the lead villain, who basically orders the men to shoot and kill these horses, including Bernard, who's the son. So you've got who was there at the you had Bernard Posa, that was played by David Royer.
Yeah.
And then you had I think Mr. Stuart Posa, who was his father, who's probably the other lead villain. He's like
he's like kind of like the town dickhead.
He's like the kingpin of the town, I guess, you know.
Yeah.
And then you have Deputy Mike, who's played by Kenneth Toby, who is the actual father of Barbara. So Kenneth Toby, is the actor who plays Deputy Sheriff Mike. And you've got June Webb, who plays Barbara, the daughter.
And Kenneth Toby, he's been in a lot of shit. I mean, we're talking like I think
he's
in the actual original thing from Outer Space, or the one that kind of led to the remake.
As soon as I seen the face, I kind of reckon he does have quite a recognizable face from films back of that era. And I did recognize Kenneth Toby as the deputy, but prior to this, like we say, they're on the border of the reservation, probably illegally, and you know.
Oh, he's in Beast of 20,000 Fathoms too.
Oh yeah, Beast of 20,000 Fathoms. So, of course, Stuart Posa, his son Bernard Posa's there. Then Deputy Mike are there, and a group of other handful of thugs, and they've got the rifles ready to go and shoot the horses. When all of a sudden, here comes along Billy Jack, who is half American and half Native American. And he comes on and he basically tells, Stuart Posa's basically like, there's nothing you can do here. We're allowed to be here, and we've got the law on our side. And then Billy Jack goes, well, actually, no, you're on my property, my land. The law doesn't matter yet. I am the law. And the kind of is a bit of back and forth between the two of them, and then suddenly Billy Jack, I guess they're getting ready to maybe potentially kill him, but he quickly gets his shotgun out and he takes them all out, shoots the guns around them, and they go off. But obviously, Stuart Posa basically says, the next time I see you and you're in my territory, you're going to belong to me. At the same time, like I say, we've got Deputy Sheriff Mike goes back home. A little bit before that, we do get, the main sheriff who's there. He basically informs him that his daughter, Barbara, has been found, who must have ran away from home.
And he's the only one, it seems like, rational between all these townspeople.
Yeah. So he goes, come with me, let's bring back your daughter. And he says, I cannot, I've got to go and make Posa on this little bit of business. And I guess the sheriff knows it's illegal what they're about to do, but he just lets him get away with it, because I guess it's them against him. What can he do? He's like the only decent. He's like the only decent.
He's trying to play both sides without getting pissed. People pissed off from either side.
Yeah. So he basically is there, blah 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 blah, and then that's when it skips after the initial meeting with Billy Jack, where he's back home with Barbara. And Barbara's sitting there with a towel on her, and she's sitting there like this. And she just comes across as like a snotty brat, basically. And he's going, right, and she just sits in. He goes, right, and now that you're back, we'll have to get you checked out by the doctor. You're okay? Did anything happen? And she's like, yep, I've got a headache and I've got a hepatitis.
And I'm pregnant.
And I'm pregnant. He goes, all right, we'll have to go and get the doctor to check you over. He goes, who's the father? Who's the father? She goes, the father could be anybody. And this is when I'm just sitting there with me noodles. So this was a life-death situation, anyone watching this, because I nearly choked. I'm sitting there and I had a mouthful of noodles, and she turns around and she goes, well, I literally was sitting there in these, I can't remember what you call them. Was it like,
well, I know she was just going through like a list. Like, could have been a white guy, could have been an Indian, could have been a black guy.
Goes,
I mean,
she basically was like at a gangbang or something, and she
yeah,
goes,
being passed around.
She goes, these funny looking people. It could have been any of them. It could have been the white guy, the black guy, the Asian guy. It could be any of them, and it's like, it's just the way she says it. It's like it's like not a bad thing. And then suddenly Detective Mike looks at her with like a disgusting look, and he gets up and he basically bitch slaps her. And the next scene is she's at the hospital, you know, after she's been hit by.
Yeah, didn't they find her outside somewhere? Like she was like out in the grass or something, because she ran away again or something.
Yeah, she runs away again, and then she ends up going to the hospital where there's a doctor who's very much like the sheriff. He's very much looks after people. He cares about the people of the town. He then makes a suggestion because he knows they're going to come after her, and she's really, in her state, being, I think she was about 6 weeks pregnant, shouldn't be around violence or stress. So Billy Jack's there, and this is when, you know, the doctor makes a suggestion that she hides out at this school, which is on the, you know, the Native American land. And what ends up happening, she goes to this school. It's not a normal school. It's like a school full of waste and strays, people who've, you know, had like, you know,
it's like almost like a hippie commune in some ways, but it's more of like, you know, just a counterculture, as they call it. They just, they're usually pretty civil, but like they use their voice to kind of like, they do like dramatic script sketches, you know, or skits for drama entertainment. They sing songs about freedom, and so
painting, getting. So it's full of like mixtures of people who've run away from home, who've had difficult upbringing. It's full of like other Native Americans. It's full of black kids that's probably been racistly.
So it's total opposite from what you see in the town, which is primarily white people.
Yeah. So the town is, like you say, it's like full of white people, very racist people. You know, all of that. Where this like you say, school which is on the Native American conservation grounds is basically it's a peaceful place. Like you say, it is very hippified though, where, you know, they're so free, and, you know, they can just smoke grass and nothing gets said. And there's only like 3 rules. And the 3 rules is that they have to participate in what goes on. No like fighting, and to be able to express yourself, stuff like that. So when Barbara first goes, I think she's very hesitant and thinks it's like a load of bull. And then as she progresses, she starts to like let the walls down, and she starts to basically allow herself to be involved with obviously everything that goes on. And then when she finally does open up, she starts one of the acting classes, and it's where you've got this black boy, and she like does this Jesus Christ like thing where he becomes Jesus Christ, and she goes, well, how can we acknowledge him? And she does like the large fist pump like that, and they raise the hand like that to acknowledge him. And that plays a part right near the end of the film, because obviously, as you know, back then, if you said Jesus Christ was black or even hinted at it, you would be just, you know, blackballed or treated like shit.
Oh, yeah.
Where she was basically doing it, you know, as a way to say, like, how do you know he wasn't? And, you know, all of this stuff, and everyone's equal and all that, which is rightly so. So when they did the acknowledgement at the end, for me, it was a very powerful moment. Mm-hmm. Another powerful moment for me when they were at the school is when you had the young 11-year-old girl, where she's being taught, you know, to express yourself, like I said before. And
I think that's Carol. Yeah, I think that's Carol.
Yeah, but I've kind of went the one thing I have meant that I need to mention that I haven't mentioned, the school is run by Dolores.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jean Roberts.
Yeah.
The lead actress in this is Dolores Taylor, who was Tom Laughlin's partner. I don't know if they were married at that time.
Yeah, they were married. Yeah.
So, well, his wife Dolores Taylor, who was a great actress in this. I really enjoyed her in this. She plays Jean Roberts, who runs the school, who has set the rules and the boundaries for all the students. And there's a young girl who you said called Carol, who's played by Teresa Kelly. I found this moment very, very powerful, and it's a bit where she has to express herself, and you kind of understand why she's at the school, because she tells the story via song of her having two brothers that have died. Mm-hmm. And I think, that for me was a very powerful moment. And after she ends singing the song, the audience watching's like totally silent, and they've took in all of what she's expressed, which I thought was a strong moment. Like when I first saw the beginning of the movie with Billy Jack and Barbara, I thought this was going to be like a fun action comedy type thing, but then it does have some very powerful serious moments in it, and it does, when it you see the serious moments, you really take them in, and it it does talk a lot about racism, stuff like that, sexism,
I think one of the pivotal points of the whole movie for me, because you've got your two main characters, which is Billy Jack and Jean, and so like Jean runs the school, and she used her brand of pacifism because she doesn't like violence. She doesn't do as with Jack is sort of built differently, where he's learning to try to be reserved, through being around the kids, being around the school. But ultimately, he still got like a lot of anger inside, which, obviously the things that go on in this movie would enrage anybody. Mm-hmm. And so I often look at this film, and I really thought about by the end of it that I don't like putting the blame on anybody, but Jean's pacifism kind of led to these chain of events that kept going and going and going, even for her. Like it ended up kind of backfiring on her. But like we get to this pivotal point in the movie where after Barbara's gone to school and integrated in, and like you said, Carol's expressing herself through song, the kids want to go to town, which again, the town that doesn't really want to welcome them, but they want to go there, shop or whatever, because it's, it's off the reservation. But Billy's like, is that a good idea? And she's like, well, I can't say no. Like they got to make their own decisions.
I thought, I thought that was even though, like you say, that's probably her downfall, and her weakness is the fact that she doesn't toughen up, and she knows the state of the world that they're in at that time, where the world was very discriminatory against, Native Americans, African Americans, you name it. And so for her to allow them to go into a town that is fully, like you say, predominantly white people and white, fascists that are going to basically torment them, she should have known better not to allow them to go. But at the same time, she thinks, well, if I don't let them go, they might think they're prisoners, which they're not.
True. And I see that side of it too. But again, like it's funny because even with her own personal trauma, there was this idea not to tell Billy about it, which we'll get to. But that leads to Martin, who ends up getting killed at some point, and then I say to myself, like, okay, she cares a lot about this school, which is a good thing. But at the same time, if you don't speak up or you don't put a stop to something, people like Bernard just keep going. In fact, we see a scene down the road where when Billy catches up with him, he's actually in bed with a 13-year-old girl. So like the pattern of abuse that this guy's doing is going to keep going until you put a stop to it. So her pacifism, like, while great in theory, isn't very well practiced because the world isn't going to agree with you. It's going to do its own thing. So as you said, they go into town. One of my favorite characters, because she's cute as hell, was Debbie Shock. Although this is not a scene that is really going to like show, but apparently they're in an ice cream parlor. the guy behind the counter, obviously who owns the place, is very racist and says he's out of ice cream cones. To which,
she puts a hand behind the counter.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. Looks like there's a lot of cones here. But now there's another girl in the party with them. I don't remember the girl's name, but she pushes away the advances by Bernard earlier by saying her name's Up Yours, and walks away. So they're in there, and then Bernard and his buddies come in, and now they're just going to really lay into him a little bit. So what he does is takes like a bunch of flour and starts dumping it on the Indian kids and of course Kit and whatever to try to make them white, just to basically insult and mock them. Now, what's great about that particular scene is with Bernard facing towards the window of the parlor, you could see Billy Jack and his Jeep pull up, and you just know shit's going to go down. You just know it is. And so
I love this scene.
Yeah, he walks in and he's like, Bernard, I really, really try. I really do. But you're just too stupid. So he ends up, and there's actually a very tender moment with Billy and the young Indian guy that's sitting there. He has flour on his face. Like, what you do to this beautiful face, it makes no sense. Like, so obviously he starts, doing his hep keto and beats up on Bernard and throws one dude out the window. And so it's almost...
And you've got Bernard's sidekick who's called Dinosaurs, his nickname, because he's like this big, tall. He's like
played by John McClure, in fact.
Yeah, he's like, but the character said he's like a stereotypical big, dumb brute type character. Like, that's how it comes across. He's there just to be basically Bernard's henchman, a hench bitch.
Yeah, that's basically what it is. Bernard, we find out Bernard's like a huge pussy. He really is. He only picks on people he knows he can get away with. He does not do well when pushed back.
Yeah, he was when he was at the very beginning, because at the beginning, to be honest, right at the beginning of the movie, because Bernard's there with his dad, Stuart, and he's telling him to shoot the horses, and he just can't bring himself to do it. So I thought, I hadn't seen this movie before, just off that scene alone, I thought, oh, what's going to end up happening? His dad, Stuart's going to be the big dick head, and he's going to be the one who turns out to be, he's not brave, and he's going to, build his strength up that, finally take on his dad and say, put his, overcome his dad's, abuse. But then as it progressed, he turns out he is just a sniveling little, dickhead. He truly is. He's just like you said, he's just a little pussy, basically. So
after he's kind of like beat up on the guys, there was one guy that left to go get Bernard's dad, which we don't see. It's kind of off screen, but you saw the scene at the beginning after the intro where Billy's walking out to this middle park in the middle of the city or town, and there's a bunch of guys there. That's basically Stuart, his dad's guys that he got together, and they're going to try to rough up Billy, which they end up kind of do. They do get him in the end. That's one thing about this that's sort of realistic. I mean, obviously, we like movies where our heroes, like, Joe Taslim or Keanu Reeves, where nobody can really hurt you. They can just get fucked up pretty easily. This is a case where Billy holds his own, but once you get overpowered, you're going to get fucked up. Like, it's going to come back on you. So it's a little more background and reality there with that. And so obviously they're beating the shit out of Billy in the middle there, and then the sheriff walks up and is like, "Hey, what's going on, guys?" trying to play that middle road again. He's talking to some of the guys like, "Hey, how's the family, dude? You good? Yeah. How about that project you were working on?" So he's like, "All right, I think we've had enough today." And then I guess the guy in the ice cream parlor, he's like, "Well, you're not gonna press charges?" It's like, who all would I be charging here? So he doesn't even think it through. He thinks they're just going to charge Billy, because even though they're all guilty of starting shit in that fucking parlor. So
yeah, they've all done wrong in their own way. But yeah, that's a great scene as well. You actually showed the clip where Stuart poses there, and he's talking, like I said before when I mentioned at the beginning, where he turned around and he went, when you're on my territory, I'm gonna, get you back. And that was the scene where he says, and he had all these little henchmen around, and then Billy Jack knows he's screwed. He knows he's gonna get beat up and taken down, but he had to have that moment where he kicks him right in the face and knocks him on his arse on the floor. And you showed that clip, and I thought, after that, you knew he was done for, but he still went out fighting till the end.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like, okay, I don't have a choice, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit you in your face and knock your ass to the ground and then go from there. So, yeah, we start kind of dealing with because after that event, the town kind of gets worried that the kids at the school are going to be troublemakers. And so they have like this big council meeting between the town and the school. And that's actually kind of a very nice scene because, the townspeople, like, they can be a little rational, but they're like, like when the guy that I told you, Howard Hessman, his character comes up and they're like, when's the last time you took a bath? And he's like, what? What's that got to do with anything? So they kind of go back and forth. The little girl brings up a quote from Hitler.
Well, that's Carol again. She's a very strong character, I feel, in this. Where she basically brings up, she brought up the fact that she wrote a song about her two brothers who have died. Then, she's talking, to the council. And some of them are rational, but some of them are just abusive.
Right.
And, they're deliberately, I think, trying to rally up or, rile up the people from the school because they want the rest of the townspeople to see them as what they are telling them they are. And they're also trying to do the same with the council members and rile them up so they show their true colours, that they are these racist fascists.
Yeah.
And so there's back and forth between the two, and then like you see, you have that one moment with the 13-year-old girl, which is Carol. Sorry, the 11-year-old, and she says this quote, and then at the end she goes, "It was from Hitler."
Yeah, because supposedly it's supposed to be like a pro-American thing, and she was pointing out that, well, what you're using is actually what Hitler was using to try to like use propaganda and agenda to get people to get on her side. That's sort of the relevance. So the town's council was kind of pissed off that they're like, she's trying to compare them to that, but that's what she was getting at. And so, but they did end up getting a win. Like a couple of the council people decide, okay, we're going to come visit your school. We're going to see what you're about so we don't get the wrong impression. And so that's where all these dramatic skits come in where the kids portray certain episodes. Like I love the first one where Hessman and the other guy are driving around smoking weed, pretending to. And then like they go, oh, look at those kids over there smoking weed. All right, turn on the light. So they were posing as cops that you just didn't know because the skit didn't start out that way. So they kind of turn everything on its heel to kind of look at that everybody can have flaws. And then, of course, the two towns council people that were there, they decided to do a skit with them where the two older council people were going to play teenagers smoking weed caught by a cop. And so there's like this back and forth, but they ended up liking it. They wanted to do more of that and show the town that, these kids actually have something to offer in terms of entertainment. Now, obviously, Stewart and, Deputy Mike, they all have different plans. They don't really like these kids. They don't like the school. They don't like Billy Jack. They're still looking for Barbara because it's a pride thing with Mike where he wants his girl back, even though he doesn't mind smacking around like an asshole. But it's all about pride at this point, ego. So
then you've got Billy Jack who decides after the initial beat down by Stuart Poser's thugs, he then goes and does the what I believe it's called a Navarro initiation, in which he is deliberately bitten by a large snake, intending to become the blood brother to the snake. And during he's off doing that, and things seem to be good at the school, this is where a lot of sinister things begin to happen. So Mike's he's not around there. He's busy doing this. I guess it's his way of getting himself recalmed And, you know, after, you know, because he did say, I'm trying not to, you know, turn back into this, you know, person I was. So I think he initially went on that journey with the snake to try and get back in that mindset. So while he's doing that, you've got Barbara, who is riding a horse, you know, and she unfortunately falls off the horse and, you know, she loses the baby that she's carrying. Which is upsetting to her, and obviously she starts
building up a relationship with Martin, who's an Indian boy, and so, you know, they're kind of getting close. And of course, there's a scene where Barbara's like, "Well, why haven't you tried to lay me?" He's like, "Because I'm not like other dudes. I'm not just here for you for that. I like you who you are." And so she's kind of relearning that, you know, it's not every guy is going to look at her as a piece of flesh. Like, it's like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so she has that fall and loses the baby, which is heartbreaking. And Martin, you know, he's still by her side. At the same time, when all that happened and they're trying to help her, and also still hide her from, you know, Mike, the deputy, and Stuart Poser through the good doctor, I would say. This is where things take a sinister turn, because during that time, you've got Bernard, who is basically trying to get information to find Barbara and stuff like. So he takes one of the girls during, you know, like you mentioned, when they're doing like these acting in the middle of this town, and the townspeople are actually liking what they're doing and seeing the good that the school is bringing. One of the people watching, observing, is I guess one of the school girls from the school, and Bernard takes her away in the car.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where he's basically tells her to strip off, and he's basically going to rape her or have sex with her because she's refused to tell him anything about Barbara. And like you say, you mentioned at the beginning how when Billy Jack finds her, he says you've got two options. You either drive your car into the lake.
Well, actually, he wants to like break his elbow. He says, "Look, I'm going to come over there and I'm going to break your elbow just because I'm going to teach you a lesson." But then Jean, again, pacifist, she's like, "Well, I got a better idea. Why don't you just have him drive the Corvette into the lake?" And so Jack's like, "Hey, you know, that's not half a bad idea." So, of course, Bernard doesn't want to do it because he's going to get in trouble. It's his dad just paid like $6,000, which is a lot of money back then for that car.
I laughed when he said that out loud as well, because if you think of a Corvette these days, you're talking about $2 or $3 million.
Right.
And when he said that cost me $6,000, I was like, Jesus, that's cheap.
Yeah, it's like that's a deal these days. But one of the funnier things was, of course, the girl that's with him, Miss False Eyelashes, they called her. You know, Bernard got her to take the top off, and then he used his switchblade to, like, you know, cut her bra. So as Billy Jack's like, "Well, get out of here," and then she's like, "Are you gonna look?" It says, "Probably," because she was pretty healthy up there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, Billy gets next to the car and he's like, "Put it in drive and drive into the lake." And like Bernard's like, he's like, "I'm gonna count to 3," and it's like, I don't know. He goes 1, 2, and then he yells it, and then Bernard gets really panicked and just drives right into the lake. But it is because Jean like brought that up about doing that with the car. Yeah, that's what kind of leads to where you're going right now. So I'll let you continue. Yeah.
So obviously that happened after, you know, all of that was done, and Barbara's lost the baby, and now Bernard in his way, he's really pissed because he's been basically humiliated on not once but 3 occasions by Billy Jack. And obviously, like you see, because of how her mannerisms are and her personality when it comes to Jean, you know, he realizes if he wants to hurt Billy Jack, the best person to get to him through is through Jean. Now, Jean, like you see, I did think this was a weird decision as well. You know, she, you know, after everything's calmed down a little bit, she decides to go on a horse ride in the middle of, you know, near this lake or river, stream. and she decides to basically, I'm gonna go for a swim, go for a sunbathe, I guess, enjoy the fresh air, enjoy all of what nature can provide. So she does that, but at the same time, she basically strips off completely nude, has a swim beforehand. The next thing you know, she's now laying in the sun, but a minute before that, you see Bernard and his henchman Dinosaur, who's basically got some binoculars, and I don't think they intentionally knew she was there. I think it was just a coincidence. They were there themselves, and
right. Well, they were all just still trying to find Barbara, so they're just kind of like, that's how they found out she was seeing Martin. That's how that other part plays out, because they've been spying on the reservation trying to find Barbara. So they, as you said, not expecting Jean to be out there the way she was.
Yeah, and then this is where this is a dark moment in the movie where Bernard then obviously he sees Barbara lying, not Barbara, sorry, he sees Jean lying there. And next thing you know, you see her eyes close, she's enjoying this, and you see like a gun slowly kind of go up her cleavage to her throat. And it's basically Bernard he's already unbuckled his top, so you kind of know what's about to happen. He basically threatens her and said, I'm going to humiliate you the way you've humiliated me. And they basically tie her down. They basically tie her to the ground. And he's having a conversation with Dinosaur, and he, like we say, he likes to talk a big game. He likes to talk about how he's like this macho man. He's the son of this, high-ranking, member of the town. But he mentions that he's never went all the way with a woman because he's always never had the ability to do it. And he basically is going to use this moment to like shut Jean up, humiliate her, and maybe get one over Billy Jack. And then Dinosaur holds her down, and as you can imagine, she is raped by Bernard. And it is quite a sensitive scene, but for me, what really broke it down is after that happened, and I think it's the character you mentioned who had the white face in the ice cream parlor who found the cone. She's the one that finds her. She rides down in a horse and scares Bernard, and that went away. And she has this pivotal moment where she breaks down Jean, where she's like, I can't tell Billy Jack what happened. I can't tell anyone that happened because I know what will happen if I say anything. And she breaks down in tears, and it is quite an emotional scene where she breaks down and has this moment. And Billy Jack even comes to the hospital because Barbara, of course, has lost the baby. They're there to check on Barbara. And Billy Jack immediately knows that there's something wrong with Jean, but she goes, I'm just emotional because Barbara's lost the baby.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously the audience know why she's really upset. And, I think this is when Jackie knows, things are going to happen now. Things are more serious. If she's at the hospital, if she's got chucked over, they're obviously going to find out know where she is, because there's even that moment the good doctor's in the barber shop, and Stuart kind of hints, you know where she is. The deputy Mike says, you know where she is, and they're basically prepared to invade basically the school because they know she's there, and they're going to have these arrest warrants, and they're going to have every opportunity to get Barbara back. And this leads into the final where basically they invade the school to find Barbara, and Billy Jack's basically trying to defend her and hide her. And there's a bit of a scuffle with a few people, and Martin, he is actually killed and he's dumped in the river, which is sad because he's such a nice character, innocent character. And he ends up getting murdered and killed, and this also irritates and irate Billy Jack, who then goes after Bernard.
Yeah, because it's kind of weird because again, we talk about the chain of events that happened. So Martin is killed because they were trying to use him to get Barbara back, but he gets away, and one of the girls that's with him gets away because it's actually, I think it's another girl. It wasn't Kid, but it might have been Sunshine or somebody. It was the one that was basically telling her name was Up Yours, but she gets away. They find Martin, he's dead, and then obviously Bernard is taken off. He's hiding now because he knows he's behind it. But there's a moment where they're sitting there, and the girl that is called Up Yours, she's like, basically, I should have told him. And then somehow Billy Jack just blurts out, what, did he rape Jean? And then she's like, how'd you know? He's like, I didn't. So somehow he kind of figured something out like that was going to happen. And so again, these chain of events where that one girl feels like it's her fault that Martin's dead, even though it's not her fault, but just a chain of events that happen. They like maybe Bernard be dead already and Martin be okay if they had said something. So yeah, so basically now it's like Billy Jack's going to find Bernard, and you could just tell this when this kind of movie, the age it was made in, that they didn't spend a lot of time in details like we get with more modern revenge films. Like a lot of times we'll see more of the actual like, oh, you're gonna get fucked, or gonna have like a good one-liner to go with the death, you know, like Arnie or something. But in this case, he comes into like looks like a hotel or something, finds Bernard. He's laying with a 13-year-old girl. He tells the girl, which is kind of funny. She looked kind of Indian to me. Did she look Indian to you?
Yeah, I thought she looked more Indian. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, so he ain't that racist. So anyway, Bernard tries to like shoot him with a handgun, like misses. Like, how can you fucking miss?
I thought they did take more risks as well, because clearly the actress did have a young looking face, which is there's no way she would have been 13, because as you know, as after she sees that age, he goes, get out. You actually see her get up and go out the room, but you actually see her full nude, like her breasts and everything. So if obviously you can go out the room. So I thought, you know, that's kind of risky to show stuff like that back then. I know she's not 13.
I would have been 18 at least, I guess, but sometimes they look younger, so they'll play it that way. But but you're right. I mean, back then there may not have been like legal rules in place at the time to protect girls from that. Like, because you hear a lot of horror stories from the 70s about some of that stuff.
Because obviously, even if she's 18-year-old, they like have a young girl like walk past completely nude, I thought was a bit bizarre, because I don't think you would. If it was a really low-brow B movie these days, you probably wouldn't see that these days. So I thought that was quite risky as well. Like I said, like you mentioned, it's the time and the era it was filmed in.
So he somehow Bernard can't hit the broadside of a barn with his bullet. So Billy Jack comes up and gives him a chop to the fucking neck, and he's done. Like, but even though I know that probably would have killed Bernard, like you don't see anything really much after that, so we're kind of just left to assume that he's dead, which he is. But in modern film, they probably would have made him say something quirky before killing him or something.
Yeah, I think what would have made that scene more powerful, like you do hear him chop him against the neck, and he just looks up and goes like that. It would have been nice if they added some sort of break sound effect, you know, like a neck snap.
Or him choking or something.
Yeah. And then he's like, and then you just see him pass out because he kind of breathing, and you know he's dead. But it was just boom, and he just went, ugh.
Yeah.
Like, but it was still good to see him get you. But I was hoping for a much more gruesome death.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah, if I did a remake of this, if you were talking about it, like if we did a remake, that whoever that plays that part needs to die like a horrible death.
like you've got that scene with for example, with Jean, where you know he's got him pinned, and there's that scene where he does something. He obviously like uses a finger or something, and you see her squint in pain before he jumps on and fully rapes her. I would have liked it if he basically grabbed the gun off him and shot him in the balls and blew his dick off, and see him riling round in absolute agony, thinking, well, you did that to Jean, I've taken your nutsack away from you. Something like that would, for me, would have been better than just a bang karate chop against the throat. Especially because of the graphicness of that particular. I know you don't see everything, but you can see the lead up to it. But that, for me alone, is like, should have been. You should have had a better death for that particular character.
I think that's sort of some of the problems with this film. I don't want to get too much in it because I want to talk about it after we're done. But like, it seems like this film at times didn't know what it really wanted to be because it was pushing boundaries with race and all this and rape and stuff like that, but it didn't want to go too far into like, because there's other movies during the 70s that were very more explicit and gross. Like you would see other films that had just pushed the boundaries far more in this film.
Yeah.
So well, this one seemed like it was just trying to ride this line.
Yeah. Well, you've got that film that always makes me feel grotesque and uncomfortable, and I cannot watch it. I think I've only watched it once or twice. That one with Jodie Foster where she gets raped against a pinball machine. I forgot the name of it.
Yeah.
Even that was really graphic and really summed up what. And I thought, oh, that was for its time. That took risks, which come much later. So, this film. I think that one's called The Accused.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it's basically where she got raped, but then no one believes her. Because, like Barbara, she was basically promiscuous, apparently, in the film.
Yeah, because she was in a bar and she was dancing around seductively, and people. Yeah. I saw that in theaters, I think, actually.
Yeah, it's still no excuse to do that, though, just because a woman likes to have a dance in a bar. But anyway, that's a different subject for a different matter.
Yeah.
But I just expected, going back to what I was saying, because of some of the, like you said, the risk taking or the elements in the movie, especially when he had the girl in the car and he cut her top off with his knife, the fact that he was, racially abusive in the ice cream parlor, and then he was a racist, nasty to the girl in the car. Then he did what he did to Jean. I just think him getting a karate chop across the throat and just like wasn't for me a good enough death.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, didn't make him suffer any. That was the problem.
Yeah.
So so ended up what's happening now that Billy Jack has Barbara. They're getting ready to leave and try to get out of town or whatever. But Deputy Mike somehow finds him. Like, no one else knows where he is, but Deputy Mike's there. Starts shooting at them, like, at his own daughter, too. It's like, what the fuck you thinking, dude? You've been trying to fight to get your daughter back, and you don't care if you hit her. So there's like this little gunfight that goes on. Jack hits him. I actually missed it when I was watching because it was so fast, but he kills Mike by a shot, I guess, in the gut or something.
I think he has he must have. I don't know if it's Bernard's gun. Because Bernard tried to shoot him, didn't miss, and then obviously I'm assuming because I can't remember myself where he got the gun from, or while he was trying to escape and run around the buildings in the school, if he just come upon it. But I wonder if it was Bernard's gun because he shot him and missed him. And I don't know after he killed him if he took his gun, and then obviously and like I said to you when I was still watching the tail end of the movie, I found it very bizarre that Deputy Mike, he's trying to kill Jack, but then Barbara, his daughter, who he's been looking for and trying to get back, is right behind him, and it's like he's got no care in the world, so he could hit his daughter, which is the whole point of him invading the school and trying to rescue her and bring her back home. But now, all of a sudden, he's like, I don't give a shit. I'm going to just fire away and see who I hit, which I just found totally bizarre.
So anyway, this all leads up to basically a finale where Jack is held up in this chapel with Barbara. He's got a few rifles and stuff, so he's planning to like just hold his fort there. Cops track him down. Now you have outside source cops coming to help deal with this issue. Jean is there, so the sheriff's like, can you talk to him to come out, please, so we don't have to go through this. And so she goes in and tries to, communicate with Jack that, this is not the way to go. Just we can deal with this, but the school's important. If you're doing this, everybody's going to be sad. I'm going to be sad. So she doesn't really communicate right away. So then there is a little bit of a gunfight, and Barbara's jumping around on the floor and not doing what she's told. She gets hit in the leg. So Jack's like, okay, you got to bring somebody in to pull her out, just let her get out of here so she can get help. And I mean, she's not dying, I don't think, but he doesn't want her there anymore so she doesn't get killed. And then we have another conversation with Jack and Jean, and again, it's you got to think about the school. Like, we can fight this. We have to find a way other than this. Like, nobody wants him dead. So he thinks about it overnight, decides he's going to come out. And you mentioned it earlier where he's basically handcuffed, walking to the car, and the kids are there in this big line, and they're just giving their fists to show respect.
It goes back to the start because they were talking about discrimination and punishment and wrongdoings. When Barbara finally had opened up about, and started doing these acting classes in the school, and she talked about having Jesus and doing a Jesus like acting, doing a segment on Jesus and all that, but then she cast Jesus to be a young black boy, a young black actor. He went, I want you to be Jesus, and I want this to happen, and we're going to show respect to you for all the wrongdoings, the discrimination, and this is the sign that we respect you. So they did that at the play, and then it goes right back at the end where he's getting taken away, and as the cars are driving by, and he's been arrested, and he's obviously, it'd probably be for the, all of the kidnapping charges, probably manslaughter with Bernard, whatever. And all of the kids and everyone involved in the school are all in the line as the cars are going, and they give him that sign, the signal, raising their arms up as a sign of respect for what you've done, but also this is wrong because you are now in your turn being being discriminated against for standing up for your beliefs, for protecting us. So it came kind of full circle for the kids at the school.
Yeah. All right. So give me your final thoughts and your rating.
My final thought, I thought it was a very intriguing, interesting movie. That it's a thinking movie. It does, obviously, especially for the time it was set in the 70s. At the times that way, it deals with racism, fascism, I guess male white supremacy in some ways, culture differences, all of this stuff. So it's got a lot of strong themes and topics to talk about. And so for that reason, I did find it a very strong movie, but I also found it a movie that had some things that frustrated us. The main point you've mentioned is Jean. I just didn't understand her mindset and how she went on. The main villain, Bernard, I would say was a good villain. You love to hate him, but I didn't feel he got the death or the justice that should have happened to him at the end. Overall, I would say if I had to rate this out of 10, I would give this probably a 7 out of 10 because it is an interesting watch. It does have some issues, but I think for a film that was made in its time, it was a film that really made you think on issues that need to be talked about.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, I kind of grew up with this particular film. It's been a long time since I've seen it, so unfortunately, the editing and stuff like that it's not as good as I remember it. But like, there was a lot of great story points in it. I think we agreed that if this had been like if someone redoes this, it might be done better served to put a little bit bigger budget into it and make it like a really good, like Keanu Reeves or whoever playing the character would be nice,
Yeah, we mentioned that before that me and Anubis were talking pre-doing this, and I even mentioned that Lachlan wanted to bring this back. He was, he has done 4 films. There was a 5th one that they had already filmed some of that movie. I think it was Billy Jack in Washington. And I think they had filmed some of it, but they hadn't completed it because of, I think it was distribution issues and also financial issues. So it was never completed. And he always wanted to do another movie and maybe get a reboot off the ground. And prior to his death, he was working on a script or a story, and he had attached or contacted Keanu Reeves. But unfortunately, he'd passed before it ever got off the ground.
Yeah, so it could probably use an update in terms of just better cinematography and editing. But I would say at this point, like, I don't know if I ever really gave the film a 10 out of 10 or anything like that, but I'd probably give like a 6 out of 10. Still worthy for a collection, still worthy to be viewed by people because the message is pretty good. It's a product of its time. It's not very well edited. And I'm going to check out the other 3 films just to see how it all kind of ties together. But it is good enough as a standalone as well.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was my first time watching it, so that's why I give it 7 out of 10. Maybe if I think about it more, I might lower my rating. But there were some scenes that I was surprising, like the disturbing rape scene, the scenes of like the just outright racism really shocked me. And of course, right at the beginning, Barbara with, she didn't care that she'd been to San Francisco and basically was involved in a gang bang, which probably back in the 70s wasn't something, shocking. But
oh yeah, tons of that shit back then.
But why it lost points is because of just the way Gene is, and the villain's death wasn't up to par for me. And also, I guess you're right. I think the editing is slightly different. It's like you said before, it was like they wanted to take risks, but then they were like, oh, we've went too far. We need to pull it back a bit. Then they'd go far again. Oh, no, we need to pull it back a bit. But this is the 70s, and they've talked about potentially doing a remake of this. Now, I think if they did do a remake of this, I guarantee you'd probably look back at the original thing. It's supreme. Because in the day's era, I doubt they would take even the risk this film took.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's hard to say. Our current society right now kind of leans into this stuff, but I guess the one thing they probably wouldn't do is they wouldn't show you rape scenes. Like, they'd think that would be a little bit too far. But to me, some people say you can just use your imagination of what happened, but I'm one of those people that you're not truly jarred by something unless you see it. And I know people conflict about whether or not they agree with that kind of approach, but I'm just one of those people that, like, whenever I've seen movies, so like I Spit on Your Grave or whatever, and it's so traumatic.
Yeah, Spit on Your Grave.
If it makes you not want to look, that means it's doing its job. That's how I look at it. If you tell me, oh, this chick, like, I remember I watched Emma Watson film. It's the one she did where she was supposedly in a satanic cult, but supposedly she was in a rape scene, but they never showed anything, so you didn't really feel anything from that. Now, I know from her perspective, she won't ever kind of do those things. It's not really her thing. But an actress that doesn't mind pushing the limits and understands the role and understands that it's an important piece of how someone's going to experience what's going on, I think that's important, for me.
And at the end of the day, society in the world we live in, it's too much under a protective bubble that when these things do happen, people aren't prepared for them. You do, as much as, yes, we're talking about fictional storylines, fictional movies and series, but you do have to have real life stuff in them, because if you don't, people aren't going to be educated. People aren't going to know how to handle it or what to look out for, what to prepare for if stuff like that happens without having it fictionally put on your screen. Because, we know rape happens, we know there's racial abuse out there, we know, there are white supremacists out there, but if we keep color-coding it, hiding it, we're never going to educate the kids about it or anything. And this film, for its time, probably did educate a lot of people. And like you say, maybe it's time we have another film, if not Billy Jack, that just throws it in your face and lets you see it. Like I mentioned before, The Accused really scarred me when I was younger, but it's like what you mentioned, it's because you're seeing the full effect of what rape can look like. And a lot of women probably looked at that and thought, it might have even encouraged people who had been raped to come forward.
See, the funny thing is about The Accused is that it's a great movie, but the one scene that stands out is the rape scene. And there's a reason for that. It's because it's so jarring. You know, you've got the guys doing the job. You got the guys cheering it on.
You've got the guy who didn't want to do it, and then he just ends up doing it because of peer pressure. And then you've got the bar. You've got the girl from in the bar who's a friend who walks in, sees what happens, but she turns around and walks out because she wants no part of it. Because the one guy goes, "You're next, sweetheart."
Yeah.
So she walks away because she doesn't want it to happen to her, and
because she's basically victim blaming her friend, saying she was being promiscuous and she was you know, teasing these guys, so she probably wanted. That's again, that's another aspect of what goes on with rape victims, and how some people, even their friends, will treat them badly because they think that they deserved it in some weird way.
And like you say, there's probably millions of women in the world who've seen that movie at its time that probably were like, well, I've been through that, but I've never talked about it. And it was so graphic and jarring. It brought it all back to the face, you know, the surface, and the scene here go through it and go to court and win a court case and send these rapists to prison, that they've probably done the same and thought, right, if she can do it, I can fight and show that it's not okay.
Yeah.
And when, like you say, we need films like this to bring that to the forefront.
So I know next month you've chosen The Shed as your pick.
Yeah.
So I think I started watching that a while back on Shudder. I just never finished it. So I'm pretty sure I know what it's about. Obvious things.
Yeah. Well, we're heading into October. Well, September. We're heading into the autumn season. So what comes after autumn? October. And what's in October? Halloween. So I am going to be bringing to my channel through the month of Halloween. I'm going to be calling it Taste the Blood Vampire October, because I'm going to be going to Romania the first few days in Romania. I'm going to, first days of October, and I'm going to be going to Bran Castle, which is the castle that inspired Bram Stoker to create the film, you know, the book Dracula, which, as we know, is one of my favorite vampire movies by Francis Ford Coppola, Dracula. And so throughout the month of October, when I return, I'll be doing like little movie reviews of some of my favorite vampire movies. So I want to do, I would like to do Dusk Till Dawn. I'd like to do Salem's Lot, the original. I'd like to do Queen of the Damned, John Carpenter's Vampires, and I might end the month by doing the original Dracula with Bela Lugosi.
Cool. Yeah, so right now, next week for me, Wednesday, Mr. Tony and I are doing a movie called The Curve from the 90s, more like a drama thriller for our Ghouls of Midnight series. And then Thursday, the professor and I are getting together to review AVP Requiem. So we'll be doing that. Outside of that, not sure what else I got planned. I might come up with some things and see how it goes. But that's basically where I'm at.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you, sir, for joining me again for another great episode of the Cinematic Synergy. For those of you watching, please hit the like button, subscribe, and very much please go subscribe to the Entertainment Headquarters, please. Good channel, great content there. And we'll see you next time on the Metal Time Radio Podcast.
See you later.
Just before you die.